Let's go.
Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. I'm your host, David Horsager. Join me as I sit down with influential leaders from around the world to discuss why leaders and organizations fail, top tactics for high performance, and how you can become an even more trusted leader.
Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. I'm Ken Svensson, producer of the Trusted Leader Show. And for today's episode, we thought we would revisit a previous episode where David interviewed creativity expert Bob Stromberg. In the episode, Bob shares his process to get, G.I.T, get creative. So sit back and enjoy the show.
You're also the author of Mastering the Craft of Creativity. And so we're going to have this in the show notes, but this is where I want to get to for leaders today. You know, we have an expert in Bob Stromberg at creativity, and you can find out more, masteringthecraftofcreativity.com. We'll have it all over the show notes at trustedleadershow.com. But tell us about this. How did you become so creative? And give us a little window into that slice of your expertise.
5 or 6 years ago, it was September 15th of 2015. I was right here in the basement of this house, digging through some boxes of books and looking for some books. And I found some old work calendars, a pile of them about like this. And the earliest one went back to 1975. And I thought to myself, I wonder what I was doing on September 15th, 2015, 40 years to the date earlier. And so I opened it up to 1975, which was 40 years earlier. And there was my first professional booking with my friend Michael. And I came upstairs. I said to my wife, Judy, this is like a celebration. I mean, the anniversary, we should be celebrating. And she said, huh. And that was the extent of the celebration right there. That was that was all there was. But that got me thinking when I realized, oh my goodness, I have done this. Full-time, self-employed, never had a job, never had an employer who paid, well, I had thousands of them, but never an employer that I was working for steadily. How have I done that? And I realized that I have been utilizing this thing called creativity. And I also realized I had never given a lot of thought to what it actually is and how it works. And I started thinking about all these plays that I had written. Recently, I've been writing screenplays and the comedy material and lots of music that I've written through the years, all these creative things. What do they have in common? Where did they come from? How did they come to be? And I realized that and this took a number of months of thinking about this, really working through it. I realized that everything that I have created came from a place and through a process. And the place that these things came from, the songs, the plays, the comedy routines, the bits, the one-liners, they came from what I call my creative reservoir, which you have as well. And they came through a process. And the process is called creativity. And I believe that there are two words. You need two words to really describe what creativity actually is. And I believe the two words are gift and craft. Usually we think of creativity being a gift. People say, oh, I couldn't be creative. My brother is so creative. He really had a gift of creativity, but I just never had that. And I say, well, you had something because when you were a child, you demonstrated that. Here's the deal. I really believe that the gift, you're born with something with creativity, but you're not born creative. Here's what I think the gift is, David. The gift that we are all born with, all of us, is a desire and a capacity to experience creativity. So we come out of the womb that way with a desire and a capacity to experience it. And we open up that gift immediately when we're born. I mean, the first thing that within weeks, you're learning that you can roll from, I don't know if it's weeks, I can't remember. It's been so long since my kids, even my grandkids were that small.
So I thought you were going to say it's been so long since you rolled over for the first time.
That's right. But to roll from your back to your front, boy, that was exciting. You couldn't wait to do that. It's a little scary to do that. You can see the baby's eyes just, did I just do that? That's experiencing creativity, getting up on your knees and rocking back and forth. Oh boy, that's fun. And then piling up blocks at some point and then knocking them over. All of this was play, or taking that crayon and rubbing it across the paper, making those marks on the paper was so fun. Or as it was the case in my family with our 4-year-old, who is now a remarkable artist and was then, to take that pink magic marker and color in all the white flowers on Mom and Dad's new couch. That was an exciting day at our family. All of this was what we refer to and what psychologists call and child development people call play. It was just play, but it was all creativity. It was all creative, incredible demonstration of creativity. So the question is, well, where does that go? Because so many people say, I'm not creative. I couldn't create anything. I mean, I have no idea what I would do. I can't create anything. I'm just not a creative person. You used to be. So where did it go? And I believe, I believe it gets educated right out of us in the Western world. I think it's just the downside of our educational system. A lot of good things about our educational system, but not in this regard of creativity. Because in school, we learn very early on, when we're taking a test or a quiz or an exam, we have to write in the right word in the fill in the blank. It's got to be the right word. Or if it's a multiple choice, you have to circle the right answer. Or if it's a math problem, you have to add those numbers all up and divide it and do this and the hypotenuse of whatever. And it's got to be down to the right decimal point in number. It's got to be perfect. And if it's not, it gets a big red mark on it, and we deal with our feelings about getting those red marks on our paper. And we very early realize that we're not as creative as we used to be. Things are not as fun as they used to be. Creativity does not work that way. Creativity is not about finding the right answer. Creativity is about trying many, many potential answers. Some of them which are really not good answers at all, but to try them and something else comes out of it. You almost can't fail with creativity because you're not looking at the outcome, you're looking at the process. So to engage in the process, even if it's to try lots of things, in other words, you don't need to get the one right answer. So therefore, I think there's another word that's necessary. Gift is the first one. I think the other word to describe what creativity is and how it works, the other important word is craft. Creativity is a craft. It's a process that you go through. And as you go through this process, you begin to, this is a wonderful side benefit, you begin to fill up your creative reservoir. So there's always something there. You don't need to worry about writer's block. You don't need to worry about not being able, what am I going to do now? It's all, you've got lots of stuff ready to go. But you need to understand what the process is. I heard recently about Sting, who has been, just before we did this interview, I thought, well, I wonder how many Grammys he's won. He's been nominated 43 times, 42 or 43 times for Grammys. He's won 17. One of the most popular singers, songwriters in the world. About a dozen years ago, he woke up one morning and he couldn't write a song. He couldn't write. And you go, well, how's that even possible? I mean, that's what he does. He writes songs. He couldn't write a song. And this went on for 8 years. 8 years. couldn't write a song. Can you imagine how devastating that was? Now, we didn't know that. The public didn't know that because he's still touring all the time. He's playing the songs we want to hear anyway. We don't particularly want to hear a new song. We're happy to hear the old ones, the ones on the albums we've been listening to forever. But he couldn't write a song, and he was desperate. And he described it this way. He said, "I believe it was as if my muse went away." And after going through all this work, thinking through creativity for myself, I felt so sad about that because I thought, Sting, there's no muse. There's no muse. You don't have a muse. You have a process that you had been doing for years, and you don't understand what the process is. If you understood what the process is, you'd be writing a song right away. Now, here's what he did. Well, he didn't know what to do, but here's what happened to him. He, in his mind, began to think about growing up in Newcastle in the UK, a shipbuilding town. And he remembered the way the old fishermen and the old shipbuilders, the way they used to talk. And he heard their dialect in his head. And it later occurred to him that he'd never, ever written a song in the dialect of these shipbuilders. It never even occurred to him to do that. But he heard the dialect, and he heard particular phrases that they would say. For example, one day you'll wear these dead man's boots. That's what fathers would say to their sons. In other words, you're going to do the same work that I did, So, and he would, someday you'll wear these dead man's boots. And he started this, and he got a little tune. He didn't consider it writing a song. It was just a little ditty in his head, a little sea shanty kind of thing about wearing these dead man's boots. And he wrote it. And then he heard another phrase in that dialect, and he wrote another little sea shanty kind of thing in that. And he began to collect them. And then he started thinking, I wonder if I could put them together in some way. I wonder who would sing this song. I wonder if there are characters who would sing them to each other. It eventually ended up being his West End and Broadway musical called The Last Ship. Now here, David, is the important thing. Without knowing it, I believe that Sting used the creative process that I realized that I've been using in everything that I ever wrote. And here's the way it works. There are three things. I say you may not feel you have a creative spirit, or you may not feel that you have a creative reservoir, but you can get one. I didn't say get, I said get. G-I-T. First step in the creative process. You grab anything that grabs you emotionally. So as you're going through your day, and these are not ideas that you're grabbing. You can't, that's not how ideas happen. The ideas aren't just waiting out there for you to take them. You have to find them. And so you're not grabbing ideas, you're grabbing thoughts. So as you go through your day, you remember something, you see something happens in the market. This little kid, the kid in the stroller in the market drops his sucker on the floor. His mom says something. Oh boy, that was a little bit harsh. Or oh boy, you write it down. They can be anything that grabs you emotionally, things that delight you, things that maybe upset you, things that make you wonder. You write them down. That's what it means to grab. Now, when I say write them down, you can speak them into your phone, but you have a file for them. You make sure you have somewhere where you can put these thoughts. They're not ideas. You have no idea what they could possibly be. It's just a thought. And there's a resistance to doing this because people go, why would I write that down? It's not even it's nothing. Why would I write it down? Because that's just the beginning of the process. The second thing is then you go back each day and you look at that list of things that you've grabbed and you begin to interrogate them. If you have, if you end up with 20 or 30 things on your grab list, and that'll happen pretty quickly, by the way, you begin to, as you go through this process, you actually begin to wake up emotionally. I've had people say to me when they start the exercises in my course, Mastering the Craft of Creativity, they say, well, I didn't grab anything today. Nothing grabbed me emotionally, so I didn't grab it. And I said, well, keep trying, because I just know that people are not very emotionally alive. They're not in touch with their own emotions. They're walking past stuff. They're not looking. They're not observing. And then as you begin to grab, it gets easier and easier. In fact, it becomes habitual, and you're grabbing things left and right all the time. And again, sometimes I grab stuff and I go, I've got reams of things now. And I go, why am I still doing this? Well, because as you go back, then you interrogate what you grab. That's the I.
Is that in a journal? Do you use this paper? Do you journal it? Do you put it in your phone? How do you grab it? Like when you're out and about, what's your little file system?
Yeah, I grabbed it on paper for years. I think originally it was just anything I could grab.
Yeah.
But I was just grabbing anything and then pile them in a box, and then it was in a little. I remember getting nice little leather books at one point, and it would be, some of it would be grabbing, others it would be notes and stuff. But then recently, since I started working on this 7 or 8 years ago, I've been grabbing on my phone. I just have a file. I have a grab file. I have 2 actually, and I just speak them in there. It's just enough to remember what grabbed you. That's all. It's not usually it's a sentence fragment that you're grabbing.
At Trust Edge Leadership Institute, we know how difficult it can be to lead a company through change, and how debilitating the last couple of years have been to teams. Based on decades of research, we know that to carve the path forward for your people, you need trust. Trust is the key to reignite your company culture. Trust is what will grow your bottom line, and you can't do it alone. What if you could come together with hundreds of leaders from around the world to increase connection, capacity, and also bottom line impact? That's why the Trusted Leader Summit exists. At the summit, you'll surround yourself with C-suite leaders, meet Olympic gold medalists, connect with high performers, and gain tools from global industry experts that you can implement right away to reignite your people. Join us April 12 through 14 at the Mall of America, JW Marriott. If you lead anyone, if trust and integrity matters to you, if you want a high-performing culture, this summit is for you. Get your tickets at trustedleadersummit.com today, and we can't wait to see you there.
It ties back to, just briefly, someone else that we had on the show that we talked about the value of journaling and how that's one of the top things to do. And in essence, this is a part of amping up your creativity. And if you want to be more creative, and everybody, this really, and more innovative, you got to go to the whole course, masteringthecraftofcreativity.com. But we're getting a good look behind the kimono here. We're getting the get right here, right now, at least a good overview. And there's a whole lot more in the whole course. But he was talking about journaling, just the process of journaling. Ideas start to come to you, start thinking about them, you start remembering, and even on your own without interrogating that night, let's say, your mind starts to interrogate. It starts to build the muscle of interrogating on its own, it seems.
If you develop a habit, which, as you know, they always say it takes 21 days to create a habit, so it's 3 weeks. The truth is it takes more like 2 or 3 months. You actually can create a neural pathway in 21 days. It's there. You could see it apparently, or measure it in some way. But it's not very strong, and it won't help you very much unless you do it for up to 2 or 3 months. Repeat the cycle 2, 3, 4 times, and then it's there. And it's working all by itself. And that's where you get people in the middle of the night saying, I wrote this song. It's like God gave me this song because I just woke up with it. Well, maybe God did give you the song, but he gave it through this marvelous thing called your brain and your mind, which works the way that it does. So I just want to, if I continue real quickly, you interrogate what you grabbed. When you go back to your list and you look at it, so maybe you've got 20, 30 things in your list, you just kind of read down through them, and 1 or 2 of them will pop right out at you like, "Ooh, pay attention to me, pay attention to me." And you go, well, what are you? How could I use you? Are you an illustration? Are you a new kernel of truth for my ad campaign? Are you a new marketing plan? Are you a painting? Are you a new chapter in my book? Are you a character in my book? What are you? And eventually then you have, it sounds like a cliche, but it's absolutely true. And every artist, every creative knows this. You have that aha moment where you go, there it is. There it is. Now, sometimes this can happen in 3 minutes. You know this, David. It's like, there it is. I got it. This thing happened and I knew exactly. I needed that application or that illustration tonight. and I got it today, and I wasn't even looking for it. It's just boom, there it was. So it can happen really quickly, or it might take 20 years. I mean, literally 20. I have a piece now that I do in my show. Well, you've seen it, my family pictures thing. It took me 20 years of that on my list of going down, well, maybe someday. I don't know, I cannot figure out what to do with those family pictures. And it became this hysterical routine now. So then you grab, you interrogate, you have that aha moment, and then you go, now I know what it is, and you begin to transform it into what it should be. That's what Sting did. He was grabbed emotionally by memories of his boyhood. And anybody our age, your age, I know you're younger than I am, but anybody our ages knows memories of boyhood, when they hit you, those are powerful emotionally. And his mom and dad, both of them are gone now, but he remembered them. He remembered the dead man's boots. He remembered his girlfriend. He remembered these things. And he began to grab those and then say, what could I do with you? What could this, is this a song? Is this an album? Is this, wow, could this be a Broadway play and a musical? And then he began to transform it into that. Now, how long does it take from beginning to end? It can be really quick. It can be an hour and you've got it. It can be half an hour and you've written a song and you could actually be singing it in half an hour if you want to. But other things, if it's a new medical device or if it's a Broadway play, it's going to take years and years and years to develop it to the point where you can put it on stage, or produce it.
I love it. Talk more, this is great. Everybody's got grab, interrogate, transform. There's a process for creativity. We can all get better at creativity. Maybe a lot of it's been hammered away because of, if we're listening from the U.S. right now, from the American educational system, and actually many others around the world. I mean, this educational system came about because of the industrial age, right? It's like boom, 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 we do it this way. But there is a discipline, it seems, to the way you develop routines and kind of, be consistently creative. And I think this is a process for it. But is there anything else you do as a disciplined approach to being creative or to building a screenplay?
This is where there are a lot of books like Art and Fear, Pressfield's book. It's great to read some of these books because there's a we all have a resistance to this process. Fear is a big part of it. And again, I don't know if this is part of our Western culture or not. I think it probably is, but we all become very we look at we become outcome. We look at the outcome of what we're doing. That seems to make sense a lot of times when you're thinking about business things, where you got to look, well, what are you putting in this and what do you hope to get out of this? But with creativity, there's never any guarantee of, certainly in art, there's never any guarantee that any of this is going to work. And there's no guarantee.
How do you trust yourself in that? How do you trust yourself enough to keep at it?
Well, as you have some success, then you begin to build upon that success. So you look back, and I know I wrote that Wonder Boy after we wrote Bill Arnold and Michael Pierce Donnelly, and I wrote Triple Espresso. I had never written a play before at that point. I hadn't even been in a play before. Just always done the solo thing or the duet stuff with the partner I had that I started out with. So I'd been on stage a lot, but I'd never been in a play, never written anything like that. I went to see Michael Pierce Donnelly in Forever Plaid back in 1990, and he'd already been in that show for 2 years or 3 years at that point. He'd doing it 7 times a week in downtown Minneapolis. And my wife and I went to see him do that. I thought it was great. And we went out to eat afterwards, and my wife and I, and she said to me, "You could write something better than that." Well, the next morning, and what would I do with it? I have no idea how would you produce it? Where would you put it? How would you get anybody to come if you did? And what would it be anyway? I went out to eat with, had breakfast with Michael Pierce Donnelly and Bill Arnold, who I had met in Chicago. We were on a stage together there at a big convention, and I thought he was one of the funniest people. He's a comic magician, as you were, and maybe still are sometimes, David. No?
Long time ago. The big joke around here is, 20 years. You used to deceive people for a living. Now you talk about trust, right?
Yeah.
But most people don't even know I ever did that. So,
but I'll bet you saw Bill at some point, didn't you? I mean, even before Triple Espresso or not?
Oh yeah, and they're amazing. All three of you. I mean, that's something that made that trio, of Triple Espresso. Just, I mean, from Dublin to across the U.S. I mean, it was just all three of you so talented and so funny in different ways, but together, people talk about that, laughing at the show. There's people that go every year to the same show. It's just it's.
Yeah, people have been 40, 50 times. It's amazing. They want to see the same stuff over. No, please don't change anything. But we went out to eat breakfast, and and I know I shared about my wife saying we could write something better, or I could write something better, and Michael said, well, maybe we should. And Bill said, well, I'll make a call, see if I can get anybody who'd be interested in having us come and do it. Well, he called then. He gave me a call within a day or two and said, I've got it booked for next month. When next month? The 3rd. Well, it was like 30 days away, and we hadn't written anything. So we just got together and said, okay, well, we have to do this. And as it turned out, 600 people came to that first show for a family night at a church. 600 people came, and we had about an hour show that we had put together, and we threw away about half of it. Literally half of it, but we kept some nuggets that seemed to work, and we kept working on it for another few months, and then it led to some other things, and somebody said, would you like to come do it at our theater? And it just took off like wildflowers. Took off like wildflower. Took off like wildfire. And we thought we got this opportunity to do it for 6 weeks at a theater, 7 or 8 times a week we were going to do it. And I remember thinking, well, that means I can't work anywhere else for 6 weeks. I'm probably going to lose a lot of money on this. Well, it took off, David. We had people lined up down the street to get tickets from the first week on. And then it went to San Diego, and then we got another cast, and we kept 2 cities going. And then at one point there were 7 cities going, and then we went to Dublin, we went to the UK, we went to the West End of London, and it went to 80 some cities now. It's been in over 25 years. It ran without missing a date, without missing a week in San Diego for 11 years. I think it was 13 years here without stopping in Minneapolis. It was a phenomenon. Now the reason I'm telling you the story is, you said, how do you keep doing what you're doing when there are no guarantees? And I think you build upon the success, but I did that Wonder Boy thinking, well, gee, I could write another play. I mean, this is going to just take off and go crazy again. That's what it felt like to me. I know I can do this. I did it once. I'll do it again. And I realized, well, Triple Espresso was a phenomenon. It was truly a phenomenon. It's not something that's going to happen to very many people in a generation. It's just one of those very, very odd things. The right time, right place, and so on. But I had great success with that Wonder Boy, but it wasn't the same kind of success. But it was wonderful nonetheless.
New York,
it just didn't have.
I mean, yeah.
Oh yeah, it was fantastic in New York, and won some big awards there, which was pretty exciting. But it wasn't. It didn't make any money. So if the idea is I'm going to do this so that I can make some money, and this is going to, well, maybe not. And there's no other way to. But if you're looking at the outcome, it's kind of tough. You'll quit pretty quickly because there are too many reasons to not do it. There are too many reasons to not invest in the creative process because it takes time, it takes work. Some of it's difficult, tough work. Collaboration, for example, if you're being creative with other people. Boy, some collaborations are so fun and they're just great. And other collaborations like, oh, I can't believe I have to work with her again. It's just like this is going to be tough, but you have to, you do it because that's the process.
I think that's a unique trait of you compared to many. You are phenomenal success on your own. And I saw you first most of the time on your own. I didn't see you way back to the Cooper times. I mean, you had an amazing solo act, event, show, and yet you've collaborated with others to make this runaway success triple espresso, this even your first 12 years with Mr. Cooper or whatever. So I think that's an interesting.
That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to check out trustedleadershow.com for all the show notes with all the links and information from anything mentioned in today's episode. And if you haven't already, we would greatly appreciate a review on Apple Podcasts. This is a great way to help support the show and to help other people to discover it. But that's it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, stay trusted.